This is put on by Stepstone Realty, so thank y'all so much for showing. We are a real estate brokerage for investor agents. So if y'all are new to Stepstone or have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, thanks for showing up. I don't have any announcements other than this is Chris. Hi. He is a Stepstone agent. He is mainly an investor. I don't think Stepstone has ever made any money off of you, have we?
One deal.
One deal, yay.
I did one commissionable deal in like 3 years.
Otherwise, his main thing is wholesaling, and he his cold calls. So that is what he's going to go over today. Thank you so much.
How's everyone doing today? This all looks delicious. You guys are going to make me hungry after all this. All right, well, my name is Chris. I'm actually based here in the DFW area, more on the Fort Worth side. Like Erica just said, I'm primarily a wholesaler. So who here knows what wholesaling is? Maybe a dumb question in a room full of investors, but I've been surprised in the past. Okay, who here wholesales themselves? You don't wholesale yourselves, obviously, but who wholesales? Nobody. Okay. Oh, you do. Okay. I know you. Okay, cool. Well, hey, not a big deal. What I'm going to talk about cold calling doesn't necessarily mean it's only about wholesaling. Cold calling is a marketing technique for any form of investing, any form of realty. So if you're investing in real estate and you're buying your own properties, this is one amazing method to market for properties other than like direct mail or online advertisements. It's more of a good proactive measure. So who in here does do any cold calling currently? You guys do? Anyone else? You do? Sweet. Success? You guys successful with it? Kind of iffy? Okay. How often do you cold call? Every day? Okay, cool, perfect. What was that? Monday through Friday. Awesome, and that's perfect. So I like to ask that question because a lot of people, they don't, right? Maybe they're gonna cold call a little bit here, a little bit there. So cold calling, like I said before, it's a proactive marketing method. So unlike direct mail or PPC advertisement or any of those other things, where you have to just basically click send and let it go, and then you just sit back and wait for things to come back to you, you have to do it every single day. But it is, if you are on I'd say more of a shoestring budget, it is a great way for you to bring deals into you. But also it's more, in my opinion, even better than if you do have a large marketing budget. Because like in most major markets, for you to be competitive with direct mail, from everything I've read, don't get me, I've stopped doing direct mail, so I'm not on top of it. But in all the major markets, to be competitive in direct mail in like Dallas or Houston, you need to be spending about $10,000 to $20,000 a month just in direct mail marketing. And that's astronomical. Whereas cold calling, I can spend maybe $3,000 a month. And that's with just buying lists and dialers, and if I hire a couple of cold callers. I can keep my costs really, really low. Or you can just do it yourself, which is what I really prefer if you've never cold called a day in your life. So that's just my little quick spiel on why I like doing cold calling, because it's way more proactive than sitting back and waiting, hoping that my phone is going to ring. So I'm going to dive into this really quick. If anyone has any questions, I do have this little microphone here if you want to grab this and just ask your question. That way, for people who are watching this later on or remotely, they can hear what you're asking. But not a big deal. All right, so who am I? Why should you listen to this bald guy in front of the room? So I'm a tech nerd turned real estate. So my entire life, from birth until my mid-20s, I was all hardcore about being in technology. I went to school for tech, and then I realized that is just a total mind suck hole I never want to get into. So I moved into real estate. So why that's applicable is because I took a lot of the techniques or what I've learned in the tech world and moved them into real estate. Some automation skills and whatnot, but primarily calling. Because in the tech world, if anyone has done any kind of computer work or tech work, you're on the phone 95% of your day. So I was very comfortable being on the phone, dealing with rejection. So this was a nice little transition. Now, this part right here, I am a former acquisition agent from Net Worth Realty. Please, for the love of God, do not judge me. We all have a past. This is mine. I was only there for a little less than a year, and I got the heck out of Dodge, had to move on. So if anyone else is from Net Worth or New West in their prior life, I feel your pain. Biggest thing I do now is I do a lot of hedge fund acquisitions and marketing systems analysis. So what that means is I primarily wholesale properties to hedge funds. So unlike normal wholesaling, I actually deal with institutional buyers who have a couple $100 million in a piggy bank that they're trying to deploy, and I just sell properties to them because life is so much easier. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But the biggest thing for me is I'm a known cheapskate. So like I said before, for marketing techniques, when it comes to I look into direct mail or bandit signs or other marketing forms where it's high cost of entry, I don't want to pay that. I'm cheap. For me, I can market with my cell phone. I've already paid for a cell phone. I already pay for a laptop. Why do I need anything more than that? So I'm going to save money by using cold calling. Any questions so far? You guys are quiet. Come on. Let's liven up a little bit. Is it morning time? Come on. All right. So with cold calling, you have to define what your end goal is first. Why do you think that's important? To know what your end goal is before you start making cold calls. Anyone know? That's one thing. Okay, who in here primarily is just a realtor? Like all you're doing is listings, representing buyers, representing sellers. Okay, perfect. So why would it be important before you get on a cold call to know that that's what your end goal is, that you just want to list the property? Okay, I'll let you know. So the main reason why is for most cold calling techniques that I'm going to talk about is talking more about buying real estate. So this is all about the investors, wholesalers, investors who want to buy real estate. As far as trying to call people to get a listing, I don't know much about that. I've never done that. I've done one listing in my life, and it was my mom's house. So that was really easy for me to do. But the reason why it's important is, say I make a cold call, and I cold call someone and say, hey, my name is Chris Gibbons with Stepstone Realty. I want to talk about your house you might be looking to sell. What would be my problem if I tried out talking about me buying that house now?
You've offered agency.
I've offered agency, exactly. So that's the biggest thing, why you need to think about your end goal in mind first. So if I coded that cold call first as, hey, my name's Chris with 123 Home Buyers, I'm looking to buy a house, would you consider an offer? Okay, you don't want my low offer, I totally get it, your house is immaculate. Have you ever thought about listing it? Now I can make that transition. But if I've gone in there offering agency first, I cannot offer to buy that house now. I have to go stick with that path of being a listing agent. So you got to think about that first. So for me, I primarily wholesale, flip, buy, and hold. That's all in that one bucket. You start the call off as if you want to buy the property yourself first. Once they've totally shut you down, you realize this is not a lead for you to buy, then you can make that transition to try to list the property. So you can try to get a 2-for-1 out of the call. Well, see, I gave the answer to you on the board. That's not even fair. You guys cheated. Okay, so cold calling, and this is the biggest misconception, that's why I put this slide up here. Cold calling is not a deal strategy. It's not an investment strategy. It's purely a marketing strategy. So cold calling is that entry point of when you're just trying to determine, is this person I'm calling someone I can work with? That's all you're worried about. Most people, they try to enter into the cold call to try to do the whole shebang all at once, and that's not how it should be. The cold call is purely the introduction. Is this someone I can work with, or is this someone I can't work with? That's all you're trying to determine in the first call. It's kind of like that first coffee date when you're trying to meet someone new. Is this something you really want to go into? And then you move over to going to the bar later on. It's a different thing. It's a whole different time. Okay, I just went over it, so I'm just skipping my slides here. All right, so whenever you're cold calling, you guys feel like this guy? It's exactly how I feel every single time I get on a phone call. Even though I've been doing this for so long, I pick up the phone and I'm just like, I feel like that weird guy, so I found that hilarious. Okay, so cold calling, we've kind of gone over this a lot already, but I'm really gonna focus on this first part here. It's proactive. So like I said, you have the non-proactive marketing measures, the passive marketing measures, PPC, Facebook ads, direct mail, and you send all those letters, you send all that marketing out, and then you're just sitting there like this all day. Ring, waiting for it to ring, and then finally it rings, you're like, oh shit, nope, I don't want to touch that, nope, I'm not touching it. That's how I am. Every time I put any kind of marketing out, my phone would start to ring, and I'd freak out. I don't know what it is. Anytime it happens, I freak out anytime that phone rings, I don't want to answer it. It's like, okay, I'm going to go do something else now. But if I'm proactively marketing, I'm cold calling, I am making that dedication of sitting there in front of my computer, and I have my headset on, and I press go. So no matter what, my phone's not going to ring when a call comes in. It's going to plug that call right to me. I have no choice. But by being proactive with your marketing, now I can measure every part of the process, right? I can know, okay, if I make X amount of calls, I talk to Y amount of people, I can expect this many results. So I can expect these things. So that's why it's scalable. I can now say, okay, now I know after I make these many calls, now I can make this amount of calls, I expect this many leads. So I can really work my numbers backwards. And then once you define that process, then you can start hiring people, training them, and bring it up and up and up and up and up. So it's fully scalable. Versus with direct mail, it's kind of a crapshoot. Okay, I'll send 10,000 letters out, I get 1 response. Okay, so that means I send 20,000 letters out, and then you get 2 responses. Well, no, you send 20,000 letters out, you get no response. So you can't really work your numbers very well. Any questions so far? Am I talking too fast? Am I too crazy? Blindness coming off my head? All right. So I'm really going to go over the main top tips of cold calling. Everyone knows cold calling. Get on the phone. You get yourself all psyched up. The main things that I hate about cold calling, or most cold calling training, is they teach you to sound like this big, crazy, bombastic guys on the phone just trying to get you all salesy, right? You have those calls, right? You get those calls that people are just all crazy and just trying to get you ramped up. That's not human, right? The way I like to cold call is I like to treat the person on the other side of the line as if they're my neighbor or they're my friend. They're someone I know. And I try to imagine that I'm sitting at a Starbucks across from this person and I'm not on the other side of the line. So if I'm going to sit across from somebody, how am I going to talk to them? Am I going to talk to them like a salesy person who's reading a script? Or am I just going to have a conversation with them? So you have to change kind of the way your tone, how your tonality is on the phone. Because again, if you're that weird, crazy, loud person just talking a million miles an hour, you're never going to connect with somebody. You may, if they have like a top alpha personality, you may connect with that person and get through that barrier. But for the most part, most people don't talk like that. And as soon as they pick up the phone, they hear this person, hey, how's it going? My name's Chris. I'm here to talk about buying your house. They're going to hang up on you, right? Versus, hey, yeah, my name's Chris. I'm looking for John. Right? They're going to connect with you a little bit better because you're more of a human versus some person sitting in a telemarketing center, right? So my biggest thing is don't ever read from a script verbatim. So like we all have scripts out there, it's like the Brent Daniels TTP script and all the other ones that everyone's heard, everyone's read. There's scripts out there. But you never want to get on a phone call with your script right here, reading it line for line for line, right? Because people on the other side of the line, they're going to know, they're going to hear that. They're going to hear that same script read over and over and over. They probably have had 50 calls that same day hearing the exact same script. But they're going to know that you're reading from a script. Hey, I'm looking for John. Yeah, hey, John, my name is Chris with 123 Home Buyers, looking to see if you want to get an offer on your house. They could hear that you're reading from a script. I treat a script more as a guideline or bullet points. I have my main points of the script that I will read for the most part verbatim, just to kind of keep a line of consistency. But for the most part, I use it as a way to guide me through my calling steps. And then if I get deviated, because how many times have we been on a call and the seller's going to deviate us off to something else because they're talking about their cat that died 20 years ago? Right, it happens. So they're going to deviate you off. I can use my script to help dial back the conversation to back where I needed to go. So I will always have my script up, but it's not because I'm reading it line for line. You want to sound natural. You want to sound like a human. And reading from a script is not human. It's not natural. Which is like, don't sound like a robot. The next thing is stand up and smile. Have you ever been on a call and you could tell someone's just not having a good day? right? It's probably because they're on the call in a call center and they're sitting down and they're just talking to you like this. Yeah, hi, my name's Chris. Do you want to get an offer for your house? Right, you can tell they have no emotion, they're not happy, they're sitting down at a desk. For me, given I have a standing desk at my, at my office, at my house, where I can just push a button and it stands up for me. I work at a WeWork though. I don't have a desk at WeWork. I just take my laptop in there, set up on the highest table possible, and I'm standing while I'm on a call. So I just put my laptop down, I stand up and put a big old smile on your face if you need to. So that way, because that smile, it's weird, it conveys over the phone. People can tell when you're smiling on the phone. I mean, you could try to sound all happy and whatnot when you have no smile on your face, but as soon as you put that smile there, I don't know what it is. The energy transfers over.
It comes out natural.
It comes out way more natural. Yeah. Exactly. Even if you're having the worst day possible. Now, this is my little technique. I never call being the direct buyer. Even though I am the direct buyer, I never call as the direct buyer. Never. Why do you think that may be important? Okay.
So you're not the bad guy.
I'm not the bad guy. I can always defer to my jackhead partner. I forget your daughter's here, I apologize. To my partner, who look, I know he's crazy. I want them to trust me, right? Because the more.
You want to be the agent, right?
So you want to be careful with that. Be agent to a degree.
You want to make them feel like you're on their side.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Let me ask. I'm not sure.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So you want them to trust you.
Exactly.
And a lot of times I'll defer it to my partner or my wife. And I always say all the time, like, yeah, my wife, you know how how wives can be, right? She controls the purse. I'm just the guy with the ugly face and the pretty voice on the side of the line who gets to make these phone calls. I get it. I'm sorry. If it were up to me, I would give you $1 million right now because I'm terrible with money. I really am. I'm horrible with money. So yeah, if you want $1 million, I'll cut you a check. But my wife, she controls the purse. She keeps us in line. So bear with me. I'm never that direct buyer. And then also, if I am that direct buyer, a lot of times they feel as if they can push you more because it's like, hey, look, my offer's 180. Well, no, come on, you can get me more than that. I mean, you're the buyer. You get the money bags right here, right? No, I'm just that. I want them to trust me more than anything because a lot of times I want them to feel bad for me a lot of times. Hey, feel sorry for me a little bit because the more sorry they feel for me, the more willing they are to work with me. So never be that direct buyer because then you get more leniency and they trust you more when you're not that guy who's like forcing to buy their house. It's weird how that psychology works.
Do you feel like that makes it easier as a wholesaler too when you've got people to show up
Yeah.
to look at the house?
Yep, exactly. Yep, 1,000%. And it's never that real question of, well, hey, look, I never said I was buying your house. I say I work with the people who are buying your house, right? Even if you are the person buying their house, you're probably buying it under an entity or an LLC, you can always defer that off to your partners in some way of why something's not going to pan out or why you need to bring in somebody else, right? I just actually had this situation in the property in Austin where we could not move forward with the deal. So I actually had to let the agent know, the agent we were working with on this one, know, hey, look, let's just assign this deal. Totally tore down the whole veil of being a wholesaler and let her know we will be bringing someone else in. Made my life so much easier. So I don't like the whole fact of having to hide behind the wholesaler veil. I try to be as direct as possible. Now, we already kind of touched on this a little bit. Don't try to close on the very first call. So I know, like, in most sales companies, they try to go for that one-call close. I don't agree with that. I find the first call to be more of anything, the first call is just an introduction. It's just that lead in, is there a possibility here? Do you want to get an offer for your property maybe now or in the future? Is there something to work with here? I don't want to dive into the weeds about the whole particulars. I don't want to try to go comping the house and making the offer on the first call. That actually weakens your position if you give them an offer on the first call. You always want to wait until the next call. So that first call is, all the first call is doing is setting you up for the next call. That's all it is. So even if they're demanding an offer from you on that first call, you want to try your hardest to not give them that offer. as much as humanly possible, because you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot. There's never been a time I've gotten on a call and given someone an offer and they'd be like, yep, let's go for it. It's just never going to happen. Possible, but it's not likely. Now, probably the biggest issue I see most people have when they're cold calling is they're not actively listening. Now, what do you think that actively listening means? What's that? Right. You hear and you respond. Yeah, you're actively interacting with them, right? How many times are you on a call with somebody and maybe you're saying a whole bunch of stuff and it's just dead silence? You're kind of just wondering, did they hang up on me? Are they still there? Did I lose the call? And that's the biggest issue. That's why you lose that trust now. Because here you're already calling someone cold, right? You're already calling them out of the blue. You're calling them cold. And now they're like, where'd you go? You've lost a bit of trust with them. So actively listening, yes, it means that you're listening to what they're saying and you're making notes, but you're giving verbal cues, letting them know that you're listening to them. Uh-huh. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, sure. Uh-huh. Oh, really? No. Really? Little things like that just kind of laced out while they're talking, right? Now, that's not meaning that you need to take over the call and say a million things. You actually want to be as quiet as possible. You want to say the least amount on the phone call and have them talking. So the biggest thing is you want to ask them open-ended questions that's going to invoke them to spill their guts on top of you. And then you just want to sit back, be quiet, and listen and add in those little bits of, uh-huh, oh, really? Oh, sure, yeah. Of course. Little things to let them know that you're listening to them. And just keep note of what they're saying and then use some of those things back onto them. Hey, look, you said this before. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Right? Any questions so far? Feel free to ask questions. You're not going to hurt my feelings. All right, now the best time to call, this is very subjective. So obviously we have little times here that are kind of like the better times to call, but I say the best time to call is when you're available to call. Because say you're still working a 9-to-5 job, or maybe you have something else going on, and I can't call 8 to 11. That just doesn't work for me, right? When do you have the time? So that's the one thing I love about cold calling is you can call on your own time. You can call on what's going to be best for you. Now, obviously, the best times to call are going to be kind of more for when you have the best opportunity of connecting with somebody. Early in the morning when they're on their way to work or before they get to work, and in the evening when they're on their way home from work before dinner. I really try not to call after dinner time because do you want to be that person calling someone when they're eating their cheeseburger? No, you don't. Like, that's the last thing that wants to happen. Question?
Sorry, I can go back one screen.
Go back one screen?
So you mentioned about trying not to seal the deal.
Yes.
The call, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you call it, hey, please, I want to buy your home.
Yeah.
They say, okay, yeah. How much you want to buy it for?
Hey, that's a great question. I really don't know. I couldn't tell you. I don't know anything about the house. Do you have maybe about 5 minutes for me to ask you a few questions about it to see if this is something that I even want to buy? Right? How can I give you an offer if I don't know anything about it? Right? All I know is I have your name, a phone number, and address. That's all I have. I don't know if the foundation's cracked. I don't know if you have a zombie in the attic trying to attack people when they walk up there. I don't know these things, right? So hey, do you have about 5 minutes just for us to chat a little bit, talk, I'm just going to ask you a few questions about the place, just to see if I even want to buy it, because I don't know that yet.
So the goal is to secure a face-to-face appointment?
Depends on what your model is. So my model is pure virtual. I don't look at houses. I don't leave my office if I don't have to. So I do everything over the phone as much as humanly possible. Because I don't just deal with DFW. I deal with the entire state of Texas. So I try to get that flexibility. But if I ever do go look at a house, it's not until after I have a contract on it. So I'm very particular on that. But if you are someone who you're only buying in a very certain zip code, a very certain area, and you know that you want to get eyeballs in every house, it's okay. Every investor is different. I'm a wholesaler. I don't care. As long as I get enough price, it's all that matters to me as a wholesaler, right? But if you are yourself buying it, then yeah, this could be very applicable. So you're just setting up an appointment on that first call. It's either for you to have a face-to-face meeting at the property or at Starbucks or whatever, or is to have a follow-up call to talk more in detail and go over an offer.
So with your situation, you said you never see the house, you don't go there.
Mhm.
So after you hang up on the first call, you probably do some digging into the house and go on Google and see what it looks like, or?
Right, so after that first call, we then put that lead into our database for it to then be underwritten. So at that point, then we're gonna go through an underwriting process where we determine ARV, rent rates, and drill down to what was gonna be the best case scenario. Now, obviously on that first call, I'm gonna ask them certain questions about condition, timeline, price, et cetera. So we're gonna try to get all that information out of them on that first call, if I can, right? Then I'm gonna use the information that they gave to me, which 80% could be accurate. You know, some people are not always 100% truthful over the phone. But I'm gonna base off of what our conversation said to determine what the house looks like, right? So if they told me, hey, yeah, we haven't remodeled this place in 10 years, it's very original, roof, yeah, got a couple of leaks here or there, it feels a little slanted on one side, like they're gonna tell me some of these things, and I'm just making a mental note of, okay, maybe we got a roof repair, we've got to replace HVAC. I'm gonna know a lot of these things based on that call. So then I can just calculate that information. Yeah.
Some people may not disclose about the roof issue unless
They
you
may
ask
not.
them the question.
Yeah.
That's why the
Exactly.
interview is very important.
So that's why, again, first call is more of a discovery to get as much information as I can get if they'll give it to me. The second call, that's really where now, because most people, they're not calling back the second time, right? They're gonna get to that first call, maybe their VA called them, the lead gets passed down to the lead manager, whoever's supposed to call them back, and then they never do, right? But if you call them back, okay, well, wait a minute. Someone actually called me back. They were honest about this. Now you've built a little bit more trust with them, so now you can beat down those barriers a little bit more and have a longer phone call to get more information about the house, more details about their situation, about their timeline, and really dig into the sales process. Any more questions on this before we move on? All right, great. And just so you know, we are recording all this, so I will make sure that it gets provided to everybody.
So at what point do you determine the condition? Because after the second phone call, you are preparing a contract,
Yep.
assuming that things are going in a positive
Mhm.
direction.
Yeah.
And the contract is person based on sort of the
Right,
condition of
it's a
the
guess,
house.
right, it's still a guess. So again, being a wholesaler, I make educated guesses based on what they're telling me. So I make rough ballpark numbers, right? And again, in my contract, I have a contingency. I have my inspection period. So if I go out to the property and the place, like if they're telling me on the phone, oh yeah, this thing's great, we just had the roof replaced last year, foundation's been checked out, but by Straight Line, they came on out here, gave us a grade A pass, we had the HVAC, replaced, et cetera, so forth. They're gonna tell you these things on the phone. Oh, sounds great, okay, yeah. Probably just gonna need a cosmetic remodel, put a little bit of a buffer in there just in case. Get under contract, we go out to the property, or I send someone out to get photos of the property, and I got the roof caving in because the meteorite just hit the place. Foundation looks like the Grand Canyon just split open in two. That's happened, right? Hey, we need to renegotiate the price or back out, right? What did it cost me at the end of the day? $100, right? Yeah, unless the seller's willing to send me photos ahead of time, which I will ask them for. I'll ask them if they have any photos, that'd be really helpful. If not, no big deal. My biggest thing with any kind of call or that I'm on is I try to be as less pressure as possible. Because who's been on that high pressure sales call? All of us, right? And do you want to do business with those people? No. My wife will tell me that I'm probably the rudest customer because I do not like, I have a hard time dealing with bad salesmen. I interact with a door-to-door salesman, and I'll play with them for half a second, but as soon as they show me how bad they are, I'm like, no, just leave. I'm not dealing with it. And it's just because I know you can't treat people in certain manners on the phone. So high pressure sales, I'm not all about it. And the more that I treat my prospect the same way and be as less pressure as possible, again, they're gonna trust me more. So whenever you're on a cold call or a sales call or whatever, who are you more inclined to work with? that high pressure salesperson who's slick and polished and has the great BBB rating, or someone who feel like you know, like, and trust? Exactly, who you know, like, and trust. So that's why not reading from a script, not sounding polished, not sounding salesy. I sound like a bumbling fool on the phone a lot of times. I sound like that bumbling fool of, yeah, I mean, just kind of calling around to see if there's any interest. My partner and I, or my wife and I, we're looking to buy a few things. Yeah. I sound like a human being, right? I sound like maybe that guy who lives down the street. Maybe I buy a property too as a rental, right? I'm not some big corporation who's trying to beat everybody down in the neighborhood. Now that they feel like they can know, like, and trust me better. Okay. Now this is the one thing. Now, if you're a listing agent, this is a little bit different than if you're an investor. If you're an investor or a wholesaler, if the seller is not motivated to sell the property, but they just want to know the value of it, you're not Zillow, right? That's not your job. Given if you're an agent and you're trying to list properties, it's a different scenario because now, okay, you can give them that value, get them the CMA and try to pull them in to list it. But if that's all they're wanting to do is just get their value, just get out the phone, move on to the next, right? Probably the biggest takeaway you can get is don't try to take all properties or all leads that you talk to as a hot motivated deal, right? Even though, yeah, maybe they came off the pre-foreclosure list, maybe they have tax liens, they should be motivated, but they're not motivated. Don't put so much pressure and so much emphasis on every call. The biggest thing, the real biggest thing in your mind on every call should be next. Just get off to the next call, right? Is this a lead? No, next. Is this a lead? No, next. Is this a lead? Maybe. Okay, pursue a little bit more. Nope, next, right? I'm okay taking no's. Like I'd much rather know if they're a no now on a cold call than spend 5 hours of my day analyzing the property, driving out there, shaking their hands, making them feel pretty, and then to come out and find out, oh, you just wanted me to give you a value for your house, right? So just keep the word next in your mind every time you're on the phone, because then it makes you less of a motivated buyer when you're okay just to hang up on that person.
I do that to realtors too.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Only want the value and I don't want to sell.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the whole CMA game gets a little bit tricky. I tried doing that a little bit at first, like, oh, maybe I'll provide CMAs to people to try to get them to buy their house. And again, I ran into the whole agency issue, but that just fell. It's like I was writing up so many different CMAs all the time, I was wasting hours of my day.
How do you detect that though?
It comes down to your sales. Like after you do enough of these calls, you start to find those little things, right? So one technique that I'll always say is like before you scale your cold calling or before you want to hire someone to do cold calling on your behalf, you want to have about at least 1,000 conversations yourself, right? About 1,000 actual conversations, not just dials, but conversations. And that sounds like a high number. You get through that so fast. But by the time you've had that many calls, you can tell when someone's being deceptive to you. You can tell when this person's maybe not so motivated. You can hear little trigger words that it tells you can edge in a little bit more to that conversation. So it's a bit of a game on that end.
Also, if the pressure is reversed,
Mhm.
you're under pressure to give a value right away.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the reverse now.
Mhm.
So, wow, okay, this is
Right. So the biggest thing is you never want to be a motivated buyer, right? You never want to be that buyer who's willing to shoot from the hip by any means. So don't ever just try to give out free values. But here's another thing that you can also utilize as well to determine if they are a lead or not. And that's by pulling out the 4 pillars of motivation. Now, you probably have all seen this because it's the rip-off from other people. But there's 4 key motivating points that you can pull off of every single call to determine if this is a lead or not a lead, right? Now, for the most part, we don't get all 4 of these on every call. I may get 2, 3 of them. Sometimes I get all 4, but if you can get about 2 to 3 of these pillars, it'll help you to determine if this is someone you want to work with or not. So the first thing is price, right? Like how much they want for the property. Most of the time they're going to say, I don't know, you called me, you tell me, right? Or they want you to tell them a number in some fashion, or they just have no idea because they've never given it. It's rare, but I've had it sometimes where I'll ask them for their price or what they want for the property, and they give me some stupid low number, and I'm like excited as heck, right? You got to keep your emotions in check, though, as much as possible. Timeline. This is probably the biggest suck right here. I've gone through a whole bunch of calls. Like I had one call. There's one sticks in my mind all the time. I was on the phone with this person for, I want to say, 40 minutes on a cold call because we got to talking and whatever. And he started talking about all this stuff going on. He sounded like a great motivated lead, good to go. And he gave me all the information he needed. I'm like, okay, great. Well, I mean, when are you guys thinking about, moving forward on this? Or what's your timeline looking like? Oh, when my daughters graduate high school. Like, okay, cool. Is that coming up soon? I mean, is it nearing the end of the year? Like, oh no, we just conceived. That's fantastic. That's a dead lead, right? He was playing me along, wasted a lot of my time. Had I tried to get that earlier on in the call, I could have saved myself 40 minutes, right? So that's why trying to get these pillars is so critical. So I don't like to deal with anyone who is trying to sell 6 months out. Now, if they want to sell beyond 6 months from right now, I'll put them in a follow-up. Don't get me wrong. If they have the motivation to them, I'll throw them in a follow-up and I'll check back in with them. But if they're 6 months to now, then I consider them a warm lead, and I put them into my track record now for me to start working with. Or my track now to start working with. Situation. What is the reason it's making them want to sell this property? Are they wanting to sell because their mother just died, it's mom's house, they got to get rid of it, and they don't know what to do with it, or the house is falling apart on them, foundation's cracked, they're dying of mold in the house because the house is just deteriorating around them, or they just bought the house, they renovated it, and the right offer comes around, right? That's one of the key ways you can tell if they're motivated or not. If there's like, someone pays me the right price, I mean, house is in good shape, really nothing going on, you can start telling a lot of these things right there from their situation. What is motivating them to sell this property right now? Condition of the property. So these are our 4, like I said. So pretty obvious. Well, what's the condition like? Have they done any major remodeling to the house in the last 5 years? To the kitchens or bathrooms? Because we all know kitchens and bathrooms are like the 2 areas that most people always renovate in their homes, and they change every 5 years. Like it's always something different every 5 years. So have they done any major updating to the home in that time period? If they haven't, that means it's more original and it needs to be updated, right? Most people I deal with, they haven't touched the house since the 1980s. So it makes it a lot easier. Or the ones I really like are the ones that haven't been touched since it was built in 1950. Any questions about these 4 pillars or 4 motivators? Price. So this is probably the hardest one to get, price, because no one wants to be upfront with that. So, but for the most part, there's ways you can try to weed the price out of people or try to pull that number out of them as much as possible. But for the most part, they're not going to be honest about what the price is for the house. But if you can get someone to give you a number, it helps. Because that also tells you, okay, well, hey, look, talking to this person on the phone, I want $350,000 for the house. Okay, fantastic, you gave me a number. Pull up on Zillow, $175. Okay, not a deal. So, not necessarily, that could just be the defense mechanism too. So that's why you need to couple it with these other items too, to determine, okay, what's the timeline that I need to sell? Well, I mean, I need to sell tomorrow, right? I need to get this thing done. Okay, maybe I can use that to my advantage, let them know why we got to come down on price. The house is a total, piece of crap. It needs to be torn down. Okay, let's bring them back down to reality from that 350, right? So that's why it's only one measure of all the 4.
So do you try to get these 4 pillars on the first call?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's more of a base layer on the first call to try to get them to know, like, and trust me. And that's why I say, if I can get all 4, great. If I can get 2 to 3 of them, okay. If I get 1 of them, I'm not very happy with that, right? Because if they're gonna stonewall me and not give me any of this information, they're not a lead. They're not motivated. So that's another way we could tell if it's a motivated lead versus a not motivated lead. If they're gonna stonewall you, not give you any information, or maybe you need to pull back, maybe you need to dial back a little bit and rebuild that trust with them a little bit better. You gotta re-warm them up a little bit.
And then, sorry. And then if
Yeah.
you don't, are you fine?
Yeah.
Being like,
Yeah, so on that second call, that's where I dive deeper into it. That's gonna be my longer call. That's really where I'm gonna open the whole salesman box, right? At that point, I'm gonna change up the entire thing. I'm gonna deep dive into the whole situation. And again, I'm gonna try to get the price out of them as much as possible. I'm gonna try like 3 to 4 times to get a price out of them. But then at the very end, if they're just not giving me that number, I'll hit them as low as possible at the knees. I never give them my top number. I did that, like, just one call that sticks in my mind is this lady, she was just stonewalling me, not giving me a number at all. And I said, most I could probably pay on something like this is, yeah, you're gonna hate me. Please do not send me some anthrax in the mail or something. You know, I always throw some weird joke in there. But we're gonna be around 30,000. Okay. My strike price was 60,000. I hit her at 30,000. So that was a win. Okay, so I think we're running low on time, right?
12:30, we have about 15, 20 minutes.
Okay, cool.
If we
So-
go over,
All right, so I'm gonna give you a base level script. So again, don't use this like the Bible. Scripts are not the Bible, they're more of a guideline. It's a script from a movie, I don't know what it is right now. But the script opener, I'm pretty stuck to the script opener as much as possible, because that's the one thing I will regurgitate about 9 times out of 10, or all the time, because you don't know how someone's gonna react until after you start speaking to them. So I really use this to really open it up. Now, for me, I'm very keen on saying hey and seller's first name. Now, this is a little different from most scripts out there where they say, hey, I'm looking for Johnny, or hey, I'm looking for this. If I pick up the phone and someone says, hey, I'm looking for Chris, I think it's a debt collector or someone trying to scam me. So I'm very like, who is this? Like, I'm not willing to open up. But let's imagine I have my best friend call me up. Is he gonna call me up and say, oh, hey, I'm looking for Chris? No, he knows who this is. You know which number you dialed, right? So, hey, Chris, or maybe some other vulgar term he may say to me instead. But I'm gonna answer the phone of, hey, John. Hey, Barbara. It's more personalized, right? Maybe now they think that they know me in some way. So now they're gonna question, do I know who this is? Sounds familiar, yeah.
The thing that I get into trouble with is the name that I'm given when I skip trace is Eugene, but he goes by Bill.
Right.
So that's like the dead giveaway that I'm trying to smooth up to him.
Right. 8 times out of 10, you can't be accurate,
Yeah.
right? So that's why you gotta work those averages, right? So the 8 times out of 10, the name's gonna be accurate, or they're not gonna have some weird nickname. At the end of the day, you're still cold calling them, right? But we have little tricks of the trade to try to help you to a certain degree. Is what it is. So on this opener, I don't read this as fast as possible. I take it slowly, and I add some ums, I add some fumbling. It's again, I try to be personalized and not sharp and polished, right? And I'd be like, pick up the phone, hey, Erica. Hey, I'm sorry, this is just totally random. But my name's Chris. I'm sorry, this is totally random here. But I was calling about your property over here on Main Street. And I asked that kind of quizzically, right? And not like very to the point. Where some people will say, hey, I'm calling about your property here on Main Street, at 123 Main Street. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna be kind of slow and quizzical. Yeah, I'm calling about this property that I think you own over here on Main Street. I never say the full address. It's always the street name, because again, I've had the question all the time, oh yeah, which one? Which house on Main Street are you talking about? And that's a winner, because now that I know they own multiple houses on Main Street. Yes. But I'll ask them just like that, so that way it's not like I know exactly which house it is. It's not like I have it sitting right here in front of me on a piece of paper or on my computer screen, right? Maybe I just drove down the road, I saw the house, and I went down to Starbucks. I know it's on Main Street somewhere, but I don't know the exact house number, right? So once I ask them that question, then I'm invoking a response back from them in some way, right? Yeah, which one? Or which house? yeah, what about it? That's not my house, go yourself, right? They're gonna say something similar to that nature, right? But I'm gonna ask them, call about your house over here on street name. When they say the response to a nature that we can't progress, like, yeah, what about it? Who are you? Whatever. Then I'll dive into the next question of, well, hey, yeah, I'm actually looking to buy something in the area, and I was just kind of curious if you'd ever considered getting an offer on that property there, right? So again, I come off very neutral, very natural on that end. It's kind of this, hey, I'm really not too sure. I don't want them to think this is the 20th or 50th call I made that day, saying the exact same thing. So I try to slow down, I add in the ums and the ahs to make me just sound more human, exactly. Because most humans don't sound like a robot. Any questions about this structure? If it looks familiar, yes, I did steal it. This is not mine. I didn't create this. So there's only 6 responses you're going to get when you ask someone if they consider getting an offer on their property, right? The big one, yes, of course I'll take an offer on my house. Okay. Sorry, I thought you had a question. Yes, I'll take an offer. No way in heck I won't take an offer at all. You can't convince me to sell my house. Maybe sometime in the future, or like I said, when my daughters graduate high school. How much will you give me? What's your number? What's your price? How did you get my number? And who the heck are you? Right? Those are the top 6 responses you're going to get whenever you ask someone if they consider an offer on their house. Now, there's actually 7 responses. I didn't see it to be necessary to put it on here, but it's just they hang up on you, right? You thought I was going to say something else, didn't you? There's that one too. Or they're just going to hang up on you. But it's from this right here is how you're starting in the determination to gauge their level of motivation, right? Or to even tell if they even own the house, right? So like I went through this is a recent call I had, where I went through this whole process, and this lady started really layering it on to me. She said, "Oh yeah, we'll take an offer on the house. We're getting blasted by the neighborhood here. They're hating us living here because we do goat sacrifices in the backyard, and it sounds like we're killing little kids." I'm like, whoa. I'm so glad I'm not going out to this house. There's no way. But she had me going. Turned out she didn't own the house. She was just totally messing with me. Probably because she's had that same call so many times. So that was fun. But you get the yes, I'll take an offer. Yes, I want to sell. This is the rarest response you're going to get. And that's not because you'll pull out little leads. You actually get more leads from people who tell you no than yes. The yes response is very, very little. But the biggest thing here, when you get the yes, you got to keep your emotions in check, right? I know when I got that first yes, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, yeah. Let's go for it.
Or you're stunned, you're like, oh.
Yeah. Did they really just say yes? Am I dreaming right now? Maybe I should not have had that second glass of whiskey. Okay. But yeah, you get the yes response. Biggest thing here is keep it in check, because yeah, they may say yes, but they could be stringing you along, right? Or yes, I'll take an offer on my house. $1 million is yours, right? So you just got to be able to work with those yes responses. But basically, you want to treat every response almost the same, right? Yes, okay, great. Well, hey, look, this is our process, this is what we need. Let's chat for a little bit of time, get a little bit of information to see if we even can make you an offer. My biggest thing is I'm always pulling away. I'm never charging straightforward them. I say, well, hey, look, let's get a little bit of information. Maybe I can get you an offer, maybe I can. Let's talk about it a little bit more, see if I can get you one. I'm never just going to go straight forward at them. Condition. What is the condition like? Now, I'm never just going to ask somebody, how crappy is your house? What's the condition in? What's the CapEx, or what's the rehab like? I'm not going to use those kind of technical terms with them on the phone, right? Because if you talk to, say, your mom, I always use the moms in here, and you're talking to your mom, it's like, hey, what's wrong with your house? What do you need? What do you need done? Go there on the weekend. She hands you the tool bag and she said, I need you to fix this, right? How are you going to ask them these questions, right? Great. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions? you know, about the condition, about the house a little bit, you know, just kind of get a little bit more information about it. And I always try to tell them it's going to take about 5 minutes. Why do you think that's important? Setting the expectation. Because here's the thing, you're calling them cold. Maybe they are on a lunch break from work, or maybe they're heading into the office, and now you're going to start asking them questions. They think that they're going to be on the phone with the IRS. That's going to take an hour-long call, right? But if you say, it's only going to take about 5 minutes, okay, I can spare 5 minutes. They know what to expect at this point, versus how long is this call going to take me? Because if they don't know, they're just going to want to hang up on you and move on with their day. But I always say, if I try to get some more information about the house, and they say, well, what do you need? You know, what do you need to know? Well, yeah, can you tell me a little bit about, you know, like the beds, baths, square footage, you know, stuff like that. Leading questions, right? Just what can you tell me about it? I try to make it as open-ended as possible. And then I'll dive into, have you done any major remodeling to like the kitchens or the bathrooms in the last 5 years? Right? Because now I'm getting a better idea. But then you're just asking these little layering questions. You know, do you know about roughly how old the roof is? Right? Not like, is there any issues with the roof? Do you have any leaks from the roof? Like, I'm not asking those kind of questions. Right? I'm asking, do you know how old the roof is? Roughly, you know, give or take? Just very basic. I'm not trying to get so much information right now. I'm just trying to get a base layer idea of what we're looking at. The second calls are on a deep dive.
You got about 10 minutes.
Huh?
10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay. We're just gonna get through these 4 pillars, and then we're just gonna leave it open for questions. This is probably the biggest though, the situation. Why do they need to sell the house? Are they needing to sell because of a death in the family? Are they needing to sell because they're in foreclosure? Is there some deprivating or some massive reason that's forcing them to sell this house? Or are they just opening the idea of selling it because you called them, right? If that's the case, it's most likely not going to be a lead because they never had any idea to sell before. But this is probably the one I spend the most time on, is to try to understand why are they trying to sell the house. Now, price, this is the tricky one. Again, most of the time on the first call, they're not going to give you a price, right? But what I like to do is I like to layer it in as much as possible of what benefits we're offering to them, the value we're going to give to them about us buying their house, for them to now try to invoke them to give me a number of some sorts, right? Well, hey, look, just so you know, we buy properties cash. We pay all the closing costs. There's no realtor commissions involved at all, so no additional fees. And the best thing is, we'll buy it completely as is, so you don't need to put another cent into the property. So if we could get you an offer like that, what do you think you take? Right? That's the first chance or first opportunity I'm going to give to try to get a price out of them. If they say, I don't know, you called me, you tell me, you give me the number, then I'm going to loop back. I'm going to try to get some more information about it. And then throughout the call, I'm going to layer in more questions of, well, hey, you know, have you done any kind of idea in looking in the market to see what homes like yours are worth? Try to get a price out as much as possible. I try to get it like 5 or 6 times, roughly. But if at the end of the call they still won't give me a number, I'm so forceful I don't give numbers on the first call. I won't do it. I always refer back to my partner. It's like, hey, let me take all this information, let me give it over to my partner, and if they have an offer they want to give, I'll give you a call back. I always reserve that for the next call. Timeline, we've already kind of talked about this a little bit to try to get a general idea of what their timeline's looking like. Are they wanting to sell in the next 30 to 60 days? Or they want to sell 6 months from now, 3 years from now, 10 years from now, after they're already dead and buried in the backyard? When do they want to sell the place? Now, end of the call, I already kind of touched on this a little bit. Again, I don't give a number on the call. I don't give them an offer on the first call. I just get a base layer idea to see, do we have a potential or do we not have a potential? It's a simple yes, no, very binary in that end. So I'm always racking up the end of the call with, hey, thank you for all this. I think I have everything I need. Let me just go ahead and send all my notes over to my partner or my wife or whoever I'm working with. And if they have if they have an offer or they're interested on this, we'll give you a call back. Right? It'll either be me or them, one of the two. When's a good time for us to give you a call back? Again, you're setting that expectation. You're racking up that next call, or If you want an in-person, then you set up an in-person time to go out to the house, right? If you've gathered enough information to determine that this is a lead for you, then to schedule a time to go out to the house or schedule a time to make a follow-up call, whether that be later this afternoon, 2 to 3, or whenever that is. Any questions? All right, so we kind of went through this a little bit quickly. This is a whole class that I did at the convention. It took over 2 hours. So there's definitely a lot more. If you are interested in seeing the full presentation, I do have it on YouTube. So if you're interested in that, I did record that, and I have the full thing on there for you to watch. It's a little bit boring because it is me talking, but I'm also more than happy to answer any kind of questions you guys have. So at this point, I will open up for questions. Almost dropped it. Got one?
Question on cold calling. I know you have people that you hired in cold calling.
Mm-hmm.
So say I'm interested in cold calling, would you get my leads to call on behalf for a fee? Would you do that?
We don't do that, no. Yeah, no. So I've looked into opening that business model, maybe at some point. I've seen that model occur, and we've tried doing that same thing with other companies. It's been a total just nightmare because you got to imagine if you're hiring somebody else to try to generate leads for you, their motivation to get that lead to fruition is very low, right? It's like, what is they're going to charge you for the lead. But a lot of times what tends to happen in those situations is they'll just send you everything, every conversation. It's like I sent them, like I had one company that we tried out doing that, and they sent me like 15 leads in one day. I was like, oh, this is awesome, they're working great. Every single one of those calls, I called them back, they're like, we told you no. Every single one of them. They weren't real leads, right? So that's why I like doing this. I did this personally for so long. I would personally cold call for so long. And it's because I get that connection better and I understand it better. So that's why I said I didn't want to even look at hiring anybody until I made 1,000 calls myself, 1,000 conversations. Because then I can hire someone else and I can train them. I can listen to their calls. And then that's why I'm bald now, because I ripped out all my hair. Listening to VA calls, it is not fun. Because you hear all those little inconsistencies, you hear all those little, no, why would you say that? Or that was a lead, how'd you miss it? I'm bald now because of it. So
Follow-up question. So your cold callers, do you get them off Fiverr or something? Or you just train them? Like, how do you get them?
So right now I'm actually in a flux. I've actually fired all my cold callers because we actually had all of our cold callers in the Philippines. And I don't advise that by any means. So Filipinos are fantastic people. I love their culture, I love their people. As far as having them do any kind of sales work, I am fully against. Because, again, they're a very laid-back culture. Like, very laid-back, they're awesome people. I would love to visit the Philippines and just kind of envelop myself in their culture as much as possible. But they just, you got to imagine they live in a third world country, right? Compared to what we're living here. So a $100,000 house or $300,000 house to them is like a mansion. Like that's got to be like, you are richy rich. So if we're having them to talk to these people about their $300,000 homes who are in poverty, well, that just sounds like a normal day in the life to them. So their connectability or relatability to them is not there. And also, it's harder to coach most of them. They're there, don't get me wrong. There are people who live there who can have that, but to find those people is so difficult. Very, very difficult. I'd much rather hire people locally as much as possible. So I'm trying to change my dynamic a little bit to where new people who I'm hiring onto my team, they're gonna have that responsibility to start off with, and then groom and nurture them from there. So I've tried about every cold calling software under the sun. We've tried BatchDialer, Batch Leads, ZenDial, which I think they've just rebranded to something else, Call Tools, and I've just gone back to Mojo Sales. We did Batch Leads for a few years, and our call rate, like our connection rates went down. Our conversion rates just bottomed out. We were hardly getting any kind of connections, any kind of communication with anybody. I don't know what it was. I know they could dial like 10 lines at a time or whatever, and great number switching or whatnot. I just didn't like it. Same situation with call tools. I had great hope for those two systems. We went back to Mojo and our connectivity went straight through the roof again. So.
So I have a two-part question. The first part, you mentioned something at the very beginning that your end buyers are now hedge funds.
Yes.
So that was the first time I heard it. Can you expand on
Okay.
that a little bit?
Yeah, so if anyone follows me on Facebook, you know a lot of what I do is I wholesale properties, but I don't like doing normal wholesaling to end investors because end investors, you guys are here, right? You love buying from wholesalers, right? Wholesalers are the most honest, knowledgeable people in the room. Yeah, it's hard to deal with those kind of investments. And I still do normal wholesale. Like I have one in Granbury right now. If anyone's interested, I got a burnout in Granbury. But they're a little bit more difficult. But the biggest thing with hedge funds is they buy purely off numbers. Like it's purely based off the rent rate. So they like rental properties. So they're not going to go buy a high-end house in North Dallas. They're just not going to do that. They're going to buy the rental property. So they're very consistent on that nature. So with them, I can sell, say if I have a 322 brick house in Watauga, right? Very rentable neighborhood, right? And let's say that the rent rate on the house is $1,850 a month. Is the marketable rent rate. I can calculate about with a 90% accuracy of what that hedge fund's going to buy that property at. I don't even need to look at ARV. I don't need to care about ARV. I can. I still look at it. But for the most part, I can sell to a hedge fund for a much higher than I can to a normal investor. Because a normal investor now, what are they buying at? Like 75% of ARV? 75% of ARV? Right. They don't look at that. They don't look at the whole 70, 80. They don't look at any of that garbage, right?
How about the assignment? Did they give you any hard time on the assignment?
No.
So
No.
this whole knowledge probably somehow influences your conversation with the seller because you're now tailoring your questions to your end buyer.
Yep,
right?
exactly. So I act more in the way, if you think about it, kind of in a way like an agent would with the hedge funds, but I wholesale to them. I don't act like an agent by any means. So I will acquire the property knowing what they'll buy it at, and sometimes that means my offer will be higher to the seller than other wholesalers or investors will. Because say if you look at that house, or Erica looks at that same house, that one in Watauga, let's say ARV is 250, right? And let's say it needs 40,000 in repairs. Rough numbers, what are we looking at there? 150? 130? Yeah, 130 on a good day, right? I could probably buy that house at 190 and sell for 220. I could probably beat anybody out on the room on that one because they're going to buy it based off the rents.
Yeah, so these are not like selling to me Westpac or QB or anything
Yeah,
like that.
exactly.
You just go to
Yeah, this is a straight sell. So it's not like, oh, hey, yeah, let me go call up my buddy Omar Equity Cash Offer and have him sell this thing for me. Right, I'm not doing that. Right, so it's not like, oh yeah, I'm going to give an option period to them. They're going to try to find a buyer if they can. Great. I'm not trying to daisy chain. Yeah, yeah. They give me the offer. It's a straight done deal. They do have an option period that they need, so it's like a short 3 to 5 day option period that they need, but that's purely just because of their red tape. They've never backed out on a deal on me. And there was a house that I actually just closed on 2 weeks ago. I think I already talked about this one. Here in Garland. And I was actually freaking out about this one a little bit because on paper the house was pristine, good, clean. I actually was brought to me by another realtor, brought it to me, the house was great. Like, okay, fantastic. Sent it over to them, they loved it, they got the contract on it, they went out to do their inspection, and they said the foundation needed to be replaced. I've never heard of a foundation needing to be replaced. I'm like, how do you replace a foundation? And basically that was just them saying the foundation is just totally jacked. So I'm like, oh, great. Okay, send me the termination. Like, oh, no. We just need 5,000 off. Okay, good.
just a typo.
Right, exactly. So they were still good to go, right? So I was happy as a clam. So that's the other part too. Since all of their rehabs in-house, they have their own in-house contractors, their renovation costs are much lower. So like I send them one house where the renovation budget was 100 grand, easy, all day long. They budgeted at 65. How they do that math, I don't know. I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to keep sending them more properties.
Hedge funds like open door or offer
No,
are they different?
they're different, entirely different. So with that, I work with a lot of agents and wholesalers. They'll send me properties that they have that kind of fit their buy criteria. I underwrite it on behalf of the hedge fund. I get the offer back from them. I give a small margin for myself and make an offer to you. You would assign that property to me, so that way you don't need to incur any closing costs. And then I have to double close them on the backside. So a lot of that fee that I'm buffering in there is, yeah, I need to make a little bit of money. I don't make a whole bunch, make a little bit, and for my closing costs as well. But recent example, I just bought one from Mike and Sarah Newby. They're also fellow Stepstone agents. Oh, Sarah is, not Mike. But they're also fellow Stepstone agents. So they contracted this house up in Plano. So they're about to buy this house. They're going to buy it. They're going to flip it, whatever. They sent it over to me and said, hey, before we close on this house, just wanted you to take a look at it. I ran the numbers on it and I gave them an offer. And that offer gave them like 90% of their flip profit. So they were able to recoup 90% of their flip profit before even buying the place. So they just assigned it to me, got their profit out of it, moved on to the next.
And when it comes to like, if we want to buy one of your properties, like would you, like, I guess, is the hedge fund going to be your first? Because we have like a very tight buy box right now,
Mhm.
and so, we sometimes just need a little bit more time.
Mhm.
So would you give priority to the hedge fund, or would you still work with other
So
buyers?
right.
It just depends.
So I will work with normal buyers. Like I said, I do still do normal wholesale. Like I said, I have one in Granbury right now. So this is my level of operation. I hedge fund first if it fits their criteria, because their criteria is not open-ended. It's not like they're buying 1910, 1950. They're not buying anything like that. They're very strict. 1980 and newer, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage minimum. That's like the first two. If it meets those basic criteria, I'm going to pass it to them first, right? It's just how that's going to work. If they reject it, then I'll put it out to the open market. Yeah, most definitely. And like that, if I do that, it's normal wholesale operation. $5,000 down, non-refundable, no option.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, guys, thank you so much for having me. If you have any questions at all, Erica probably has a way to get contact information out to everybody here. But like I said, I am recording this as well. So I'll try to make sure I get this out to everybody so you have all that information.
Well, yeah, y'all can text or email me, and then I'll just have him email it to me, and then I'll send it out to everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much. Very great.
Yeah, definitely. Now, does anyone have any properties I can buy from them? Because legitimately, hedge funds have no buying cap on that end. Like endless money. When I said they have a piggy bank of like 200 million, I'm not joking. They have,
And then if they get low on money, they go raise more.
yeah. So if you have any properties at all, please send it to me. They will buy all day, every day.
Will they buy them with renters in them?
They prefer to not have renters in them. So if the renters are month to month or they're nearing the end of the lease, they'll take a look at it. But it also depends. I mean, sometimes you can offer the renters a little bit extra to leave or give them an out on their lease. We all know sometimes renters just need a little bit of an out. So if we can offer them a little bit of extra money.
Thank you.